Welcome to the podcast From Cold to Close. My name is Saeed and I'm the founder here at SRC Growth, a company that works with management consulting and boutique consulting firms from around the world to help them increase their revenue and profitability by acquiring new clients. My guest today is Taha Memon, a founder and CEO of Founders Club International, a company built to connect businesses to strategic opportunities in emerging markets, fostering growth across the globe with a primary focus on the GCC and North America. Taha himself is a multi-exit founder and an entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in hospitality, emerging markets. And today I'm going to be welcoming Taha. So Taha, welcome to the podcast.
Good to see you. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
No worries at all. I always try and get an introduction in, but I never feel like it does it justice. So the best way to start off, I always find, is asking you a bit more about your background. So maybe if you could give the audience today a brief background on yourself, your journey, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure, absolutely. The start of my career was in the hospitality space, and we started an event company. That is what we started. I was doing a lot of PM engineer work at Oracle and some of the other companies that I was working with in the US. From that, we launched a hospitality space, and then we ended up scaling that to the US, Saudi, Pakistan, Dubai. And that company still exists and it's still run by CEOs. We're about 10 plus years in. From that success, I started angel investing in other hospitality tech companies to increase the portfolio. And then after 5 years of angel investments, we started FCI, which was how can we leverage our experience in the hospitality sector and the curation of events more strategically with the FDI, Foreign Direct Investment Initiative, and Investment Promotion Authority work for different countries. And as you explained very well, our goal is now to build communities and connect the right people and also support them analyze their business, not only within the United States, but also in the GCC region. So we are bridging these opportunities between extremely smart individuals. We are consulting them, advising them, and we're supporting them in cross-country activities. So it supports the local entrepreneur and it also supports the initiatives of FDI and IPA work. So that's what we do, and I absolutely love doing what I do. Just like you, seeing the magic happen when the right people connect is at the core of our business and at the core of my heart.
No, absolutely. I think it's really interesting to hear stories, especially and that's what I love about being able to host this podcast, is just hearing the stories and the journeys of the guests that I have on here. And it's really interesting to hear how the success that you had, it only served as a platform for you to go for your next venture, but the next venture it leveraged everything you knew and were successful in. So it's always interesting to see how taking the same things that you did and then leveraging it in a different, more effective way is how it's done. I guess in terms of moving back to where you first started FCI, what made you start the company? And I understand that you saw an opportunity there in bridging and building those opportunities between nations. What was that eureka moment? What made you think, oh, this is the one, this is the idea that I'm gonna, after having so much success with your previous company?
Sure. So I was actually I was in Saudi, so I have a mixed background. I belong to a diplomatic family. I travel a lot. I grew up in the US and Pakistan and Saudi, but at the same time, so I understand different cultures. I understand human behavior, and I also see the potential in when people work from different countries, because diversity is extremely important in any business. And as the world keeps getting more global, especially after COVID, I saw that there was a more need of this, right? Most of the GCC countries were attracting the right tourism, they're attracting the right business owners, but at the same time, this was my belief, and this is what I was seeing, was a lot of people were going, but they were not really, the end goal, the KPI of really business being generated was not very high. So the problem wasn't that the bridges weren't built already. The problem was that the bridge wasn't as strong as I thought it should be. And everyone that I had spoken to, they always talked about the culture is amazing, the people are amazing, the food are amazing, business is good. But truly, when you got into the deal flow aspect of it, what actually came out of this, I think the numbers were quite low. And that is what we wanted to solve. It's how can we create a program, a system which allows for the right people to connect, but also how can we support them in a short, long-term stakeholder management way, which allows for those deals to actually take place. And that obviously comes with structure and understanding of the culture, understanding of how business works in different landscapes, and then really, a lot of the deals, what we realized was because of a difference in communication, a difference of culture, difference of how deal flow actually works, maybe the unknown unknowns, or maybe the things that I was able to pick with my emotional intelligence, a lot of people were unable to pick because they didn't have the experience of the curations. So that was the problem, and I believe this is, once I saw that at the core, we went ahead and did our first one. Specifically with Saudi Arabia, we started. I believe that was the biggest vision in the world when it comes to an emerging country really changing from geopolitical landscape, from a public policy landscape, from literacy to programs initiated by the government. And I thought that the kingdom had a lot. The vision itself was massive, and the people of the region of Saudi Arabia were very collaborative and were very open to global partnerships more than anywhere else in the world that I've witnessed. So I think with the right, the people want it, right? And with His Royal Highness's vision and the people obviously supporting it and wanting the change, I believe it's the best time. It was the best time for us to hyper focus in the region in North America.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point. I mean, you hear about the in general Saudi Arabia and the investment that goes on externally, and that the investment that goes on internally. What's the typical journey of someone who joins Founders Club International? If someone who typically might have had an exit, or whoever works with you, what's the typical journey that they would have in investing and taking these routes that you're proposing?
So we have three routes, right? One is for investors, which means family offices and VCs who want to obviously look at new opportunities, look at deal flow, that they want to diversify their portfolio. So that's one. And for them, the journey is obviously for them to connect with the right opportunities, for them to also connect with the right source of the deal flow, so that they can have the best experience and that can actually support their portfolio, right? So that's really the investor route. Second is the scale up route, which means if you're at a certain revenue threshold, then obviously you want to go scale your company, which means how can they find a joint venture, a partner in the region that can potentially take what they're doing in the United States, change the user experience based on what the cultural requirements are and the country's requirements are, align them with the vision 2030, and then they're able to really scale up their business through either going privately or either going as a joint venture, which means finding a local partner that will then support them. The last is for startups, which means if you're if you're Series A and if you're still raising and you're doing really well, if your startup aligns with the vision and if your startup is something that the Middle East needs, then we obviously onboard them as well. So these are the three real routes. But at the core, the formula still is the engagement is first understanding what the vision is, understanding what the needs are of the country, of these emerging markets, and then truly making sure that the people who are coming in, they understand that this is not just a 1 year come in and leave, right? This is about, a decade where the transformation is happening around the world in different emerging markets. And we always try to emphasize on someone who interacts with us, saying that think about this as every year I will come in and replenish those relationships. And because the region is all about relationships and who you know and how you really how you really take that relationship forward. So if you're anyone who's looking for a quick in and out type of relationship, we don't take them, because that doesn't do well. The trip has to have impact for the entrepreneur, for the business owner, for the investor traveling in, and also it has to have impact with the strategic goals of the region, which means it has to be a win-win on both sides. And just like any business, right? For anyone, if it's a win-win, that means the deal and the conversations will always be fruitful. But if at any point we believe that the business owner is just trying to maybe raise and leave the kingdom and their business is not aligned, then it's never a good fit. So we're very careful in who we interact with, because of course everyone wants to travel to the region and have that experience, but at the same time we want to make sure that it's time well spent for both sides. And we've been really good at that. And we've had great success with the people that we've taken on these delegations, and also because we do so many investor dinners all across the US and Europe, we have a huge database of individuals that we interact with. So sometimes we also are able to capture opportunities in a much faster way than other companies, because we're at the core of we're at the core of deal flow from both sides, vetted deal flow.
And I think that's a really interesting point that you mentioned right at the end, in the fact that you have a database that you work with straight from both sides, and that's without a doubt a valuable asset in your own organization to allow you to be able to facilitate such good opportunities from across the other side of the globe. In terms of Saudi Arabia, and you touched on it just now, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. How has that impacted investment opportunities for your clients, maybe in the US or on other? Because obviously the attitude has changed, as you mentioned at the top of the podcast. How has it impacted FCI and your clients?
Yeah, so really good question. So I guess I'll give you an example of this. We had a lot of the people that go on these delegations, they're exit founders, and they're really looking for the next big thing. They're really looking for the what's new, what's the next, where can they spend the next 5 years building something really special, right? And those people, when they come on these trips and they go and they interact with all these individuals, I tell them to keep an open mind, which means keep yourself open to opportunities, and first on the first delegation, just listen in, learn, see where the opportunity lies, and then come up with a plan. I think you have to be a little bit of an agile, you have to have an agile framework of how your mindset works. If you come up with a rigid plan of this is what I want, this is what I want to do, and this is my only vision, you will get stuck, because you have to learn, listen, adapt, pivot, and then build something for them. And there's a lot of competition right now in all markets. I think this is a lot of Americans and Europeans, they think that this is, if it's working here, it will work there. But that's really not the case. You have to have the right founder mindset. You have to have high emotional intelligence. You have to be relationship focused. You have to be a decade thinker. You have to change, your product based on human behavior. One of the examples of this is Michael Brossard. He actually is an investor. He does boutique hotels, vacation rentals out of Salt Lake City. He came on this delegation with a completely open mind. He, after the trip, 6 months into it, he launched a fund, after that trip, through a very unique partnership with myself and another delegate that traveled on the trip, John Lopresti, who has a background in finance. So a lot of these trips, they allow for interpersonal connections that you can come up with bigger goals and bigger businesses. And fund is $150 million out of Salt Lake City. It's also allocating in Saudi right now for some smart cities and hotels and boutique rental spaces, so that just is a success story out of the trip. Another one, Sue, is another delegate of ours. She's in the health and wellness space, and she's now looking to open up wellness centers in Saudi Arabia. Again, it took her a few years to understand what the need was, and she's committed to understand what's needed for the region and really adapt herself and also her company for the right growth. So, just individuals who come in who have an open mindset and they're willing to work a little bit on the framework of their company, they do really well, right? So you have to be hyper-focused on what the different sectors require, what the need is, and can we bring that much value, and are we the best at what we do? And I always recommend people to read the vision. It's available. I can also send it to you so you can send it to the viewers.
Yes, absolutely.
And also each sector has, you can openly access the goals of each sector. You can openly read up on what's required, and then come up with a game plan of what you think would work. But also you have to visit in person. This is not a Zoom. Most people think this business can be done over Zoom. To make a commitment to travel at least a few times a year to kind of make sure that you're building the company in the right direction. So it has impacted a lot of people through our delegations and investments in new companies and jobs in FDI. It's an honor to serve both sides.
Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting, and I think the point that you preach consistently there is the reliance and the responsibility for in-person relationships and understanding that relationship is so crucial over that side of the world. Whereas in the US and Europe, 100% relationship has its part to play in business growth and being able to close opportunities, but it's not the same as over there. And the cultural differences, that strikes me in some of the things you've mentioned there. What are the cultural differences? And so it might be an obvious question, right, in terms of on face value, but is it, when it comes to business, what are those cultural differences that really make the difference in the relationship side of business when it comes to opportunities? What is it that, what is
I think it's number one is like looking someone in the eye, having a conversation, slowing down on what the sale is, right? What you're selling. So more about rapport. The rapport building aspect is 80% of the conversation. We rarely go into this is what I'm selling, this is what I need. It's more about just getting to know them first, understanding what they need, giving them value first, and making sure that you're just not jumping onto what you need in the sale, because that's not going to get you anywhere. You have to obviously get to that conversation, but first see if you actually get along with the person you're sitting with, you're having a meal with. Are you having the right interaction? So focusing on the in-person interactions and relationship building is very important. Is an important part of conversation. Family is an important part of the conversation. Getting to know them a little bit more than you would in the US. Sometimes I'm at meetings and I'm at dinners, and then after the dinners I'm invited to their home for coffee, and it's like it's 11 p.m. and I'm about to go to sleep, but I'm invited to coffee now, so I have to stay out and have coffee. It's and if you're not used to that, then you will just go home, and that could be a sign of disrespect. You want to obviously give them the right time. So if you come in, make sure you have the right time. You're not coming in for a few days. So the hospitality is definitely the world's best, and the love you get. So make sure you're coming in with a lot of love and openness. Otherwise, the youth is very hungry to work, highly educated. Most of them speak English. The women population is back to work. They're highly skilled, highly motivated to make change, and everyone from top to bottom, from the ministry to His Highnesses and His Royal Highness, like everyone from top to bottom, and His Excellency, anyone you will interact with, they will be open to conversation. They will be open to your idea, and they will listen and see if this is something that is doable. And I think that is the beauty of public policy when it comes to entrepreneurship. You need ease of business. You need ease of public policy, which is one directional, which allows for things to happen fast. And I think that is very important. And sometimes I think in North America and Europe, we get a little bit stuck in the public policy of entrepreneurship, and over there it can, if the direction and if it's aligned with the vision, the business can be very quick. And also once the trust is made, I recommend, even if it's something small to start with, it's okay. You should still start something small in the region if you can, because once you're in that relationship circle, the circle of trust, then a lot more business will come.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. It's essentially getting your foot in the door with something small, but knowing that you're building trust at the same time, right? And building that relationship. And if they are able to see value in what you're doing, then the opportunities can come.
I'll give you an example.
I love the fact that yeah.
We had a client that
please.
multi-billion-dollar company out of the United States. The CEO, was getting a contract which was very small in scale to start off. They just didn't want to take the contract because they thought it was small to medium size, and they were very large scale. And again, the other competitor that also was bidding on the same project, they took the smaller project, but now they get, even though they became the preferred vendor because they started with something small, right? So you have to be humble, and you have to be willing to not only support what you want to do, but also support sometimes what the requirement is for the growth.
Absolutely. It's a great point, and I think that sometimes ego can get in the way as well, especially with that type of thing. But it's great to hear that the smaller company became the preferred vendor just because they were willing to do what needed to be done in that situation. I think back to the culture point of hospitality in Saudi Arabia and in the region. I just hope that they have decaf coffee available, because at 11 p.m. having a coffee, you'll be wired. And so in terms of then the emerging markets, emerging sectors that are coming across, what are the emerging sectors or industries? What do you see as particularly particularly promising for cross-border investments between these regions? What are you seeing? Yeah.
I think technology is obviously at the core, right? And sometimes it doesn't have to be deep tech. It doesn't have to be anything uh, completely new. It can genuinely be a system, a product, like maybe a fintech solution that is working in the US, and you think it could be, if you understand the region, you can change the UI UX, you can change the human behavior of the product, and you can adapt it, and it will do well in the region, right? So from a technology perspective, you don't have to come up with something completely innovative. It can be something that works in the US that can adapt. You can adapt the technology for the region, and it will do well. For example, Kareem was an app that was acquired by Uber, right? And it was big. I mean, now it does really well in Saudi, right? Kareem is heavily used in the transport space, and it was marketed differently in Saudi. The name was local. People had, it was, they had, I believe it was in the beginning, it was cash. In the US, you can't just pay cash, right? In these emerging markets, Kareem was, you were able to pay cash, and I believe in the South Asian countries and the Middle Eastern countries. So it was a cash-based ecosystem. So they started with that, and then they went into the digitalization of their product more into just 100% fintech solution. So that's a good example of taking something and then localizing it. Also, like, I think that example itself proves that if you don't have to have something out of the blue, you can take what works here, and then if you do it the right way, it will do well. Also, for different sectors, I think real estate is massive, right? The amount of homes that are being built in Saudi, the amount of tourism that's coming in. So you're going to need short-term stay, long-term stay. A lot of expats are coming into Saudi that will now live in Saudi and stay there, and their kids will go to school. So imagine, so many expats coming in for work, staying there from not just the US and Europe, but Syria, Lebanon, other countries close by, India, Pakistan, Dubai as well, right? So the localization of the expats, so anything that comes with that, and that means technology, that means homes, that means more buildings. So the manufacturing sector is doing really well. That means transport and logistics. That means food and beverage. So all sectors in itself right now are booming, and each sector has its goal. And I can't just say one sector. I believe that if I can send you some documents and you can read the report, but each sector has its goals, and each sector is booming. Right now, I believe the ones that I see a huge boom is in healthcare, is in technology, is in real estate, logistics, manufacturing, and then also huge opportunities in the defense sector as well, in the small to medium-sized enterprise. I think that still needs to be. There's a lot of work there, and it will keep growing in the sectors that I specifically mentioned. And the local government with its own funds, royal family funds, the PIF, and the ministry has so many initiatives for each sector to support foreign companies coming in.
Yeah. No, I think I love the example of Kareem that you gave there, and the ability to adapt for the localization. So starting off with cash and then going digitalized, I think that's a brilliant example, just because when you go to those areas of the world and you do realize cash is very, very important in that side of it. Everything operates off cash. So I never thought of that example, but it makes a lot of sense, especially considering Uber. That's really interesting. In terms of going back to your point earlier that you made with the public policy of entrepreneurship, I think it's really interesting what Saudi are doing with the vision. And it actually reminds me of how Qatar, the way they operated the World Cup, and the positive feedback that a lot of people had when they went over there was the amazing culture. They operated everything so well. And it got me thinking about how important a public policy for entrepreneurship is, coming from the top, right? How advantageous is that for those in North America, those in Europe, those who want to invest in those area, in the geography? How advantageous is it for them if they were to go in using FCI's delegation, using FCI's offers that you have in your events and whatnot?
Yeah, so I think some of the programs I can first mention. So, for example, King Abdullah Center of Science and Technology, CAXT, is doing great work. I mean, I just internally read a list. It was about, I think, 67, 68 startups from the last quarter that got funded, that are being supported in the health and innovation sector, that they're looking at actively. Just within, I think, a few months of that program being initiated under Dr. Amen. And just just great work, right? Under that, you have Al Garage. Al Garage is like a incubation, accelerator program that has hundreds of startup events that are literally, you can just walk in, attend these events. You have active startups constantly working in this huge space. So you have Code also, which is another ministry service, where you can go in and you can have a startup, you can use the space, and a lot of these are free of charge or of very minimal charge, right, for the startups. So if the government is supporting the local ecosystem in space, the right environment, the right mentorship, in the right workshops, and the right connectivity with the investors, that means you're building the right ecosystem, because the ingredients are there for them to do really well. So for the startup ecosystem, it looks really, really well for Saudi, just because of the initiatives that are in place. And I think you will see a lot of the next unicorns come in from the region. Also, the region is more than just Saudi, right? So localize something for Saudi, it can be expanded into the GCC. It can go to Dubai, it can go to Doha, it can go to, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain. So it can capture the entire GCC if you really play your cards the right way. So it's very safe, and the quality of the startups that I've noticed, I mean, are just phenomenal out of the region. If you go to a startup pitch competition, you'll be completely surprised with the quality of the work, the development, the product. Just all of that is absolutely phenomenal and great to see. I think a lot of you'll be surprised, a lot of the VCs and a lot of the family offices have already started to visit, right? Either through us or other programs, or just they've started to notice that this is something that they need to start now. Otherwise, it's gonna get too late. So a lot of very, very, very major family offices and funds have started to look at deal flow from the region. And a lot of the startups also now, you have the entrepreneurship license with the Ministry of Investment that you can apply for, which gives you smaller fee to operate, and you can come in and utilize the different resources. So there are programs also for startups who want to, or small business owners who want to come in and at least do a test run, for the first few years.
Wow, it's really interesting to hear that, and it's a whole different world in terms of when you're not aware of the opportunities that actually are there. It's really interesting to hear what that is, and I think that's really great. So Taha, thank you for that. This section of our podcast we like to call the Entrepreneur's Room. So as a multi-exit entrepreneur, founder, running multiple businesses over your whole career, how are you now running this business? How are you currently spending your days as the leader of your business?
I think, I don't believe in like that 4-day week or the 3-day, 5-day week. I don't believe in that. Like, I don't know how anyone who's done that, I don't know how they operate. I think especially with what we do, because relationships are key. They're super important. You have to be on top of them. You have to be careful with your communication. You have to be, and especially in a global business, most global entrepreneurs, they'll tell you that their schedule can change a lot. There's a lot of travel involved, and you have to be ready for it. You can't say, hey, I'm not going to take this 3 a.m. call or 4 a.m. call. So it will change, and you have to adapt, and you have to be ready for difficult schedules. So a lot of my time is 30% of my time I'm usually traveling, and I'm rarely in one city for more than 2 weeks. So there's a lot of travel involved, and it comes with a lot of lower back pain. Something you have to do, and I believe in macro management, but at the same time, I do believe that sometimes you have to be micro in how you operate to get the real quality. And you do need a team to scale. You do need the right people. And we try our level best to have a global team, so that if something happens, we have people in Saudi, in North America, in Europe, in other markets, so we can work different schedules. We're mostly we're not a Saturday, Sunday company. We're very active on the weekends as well.
Yeah, I think I love what you said there. We work with different countries. We work with clients from around the world. And I always say to our partners and clients, when you're working with global clients, expect global hours, right? It's as simple as that. That 3 a.m. call, or it might be 11 p.m. You can't just say, no, I can't do that. No, that if it's important, it has to be done, right? And I think that's a really great point.
Like Friday's off in Saudi. Friday's off in Saudi, but in Sunday it's operating at peak, right? So your Sundays are gone.
That's really quite interesting. Yeah, so in terms of then as a leader of your business, what are the most important metrics for you? What metrics matter the most for you as a business owner?
I think metrics is I want to make sure that everyone interacting with the organization gets value. I think if you provide value in the smallest event to the smallest interaction to the events, I think the real goal is providing them enough value so they say good things about you, and they say good things about the company. Everything we do is around that. If we believe genuinely, like I've had people who have tried to shower us with contracts and money to support them, but I did not believe that they were the right candidate for what we were doing. I don't think we could have supported them at what they wanted, right? And so we've had to say no to a lot of companies that we don't believe long term, or maybe 6 months down the line we believe that relationship will not be fruitful. So we want to work with genuinely people who I can call, like Said, today we're doing a podcast together, maybe 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. If we aren't friends after 10 years, that means shame on me, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and if you
I
start
agree.
looking at the world like that, as if I don't want anything from you, something comes out of it, okay. But if not, it's okay. We'll continue to stay friends and continue to support each other, and life gets much easier. So we don't have interactions based on what can we get from you now, what can we get from you today, tomorrow. It's just not that, and I think we need more of that. I believe I'll just give you an example. I got off a call with a company. I really wanted to work with them, but they were so short term and their vision was so small that I just don't want to do business with them. Even though the person who called was a salesperson and their job was to just sell, but that just shows how the company works, right? From top to bottom, they're just about how to get the sales pipeline in, and sometimes you don't want to do that, right? You want to be, maybe there's way more that I can give that person if that person maybe slows down a little, or maybe tries to listen in as to what I can offer, right? So I think listening in and just kind of being patient with relationships is extremely important. I believe there was someone who said this on a podcast with me. I don't remember who. I believe it was Carl. He said the longer the wait, the bigger the ask, right? So the longer you wait on asking from someone, the bigger the ask can be. So
Absolutely.
I asked him, I said, "Are you
Absolutely.
waiting now so you can ask me for something big?"
Yeah, how long have you been waiting? Oh, that's a great quote, I must say. And I think a great way to say that is reputation matters, and I think that kind of plays into it. Is like firstly not taking the wrong deals, not taking the wrong opportunities because reputation matters, and also making relationships last, long-lasting relationships, strong relationships because reputation matters. And if people know you're a reputable person, someone that they can go to, and that you haven't ever done anything wrong, you're a good person, there's trust there, then there's obviously more opportunities down the line if someone were to open their eyes to that longer term horizon. I think things will always work out if you have a long enough horizon. It's always horrible in the 3 month, 6 month period that you're going through, but in 3 years' time, at the end of that 3 years, you will look back and go, oh, that 3 years wasn't that horrible. That 6 month period was horrible, maybe, but the whole year, the 3 year period, different. And so I think that resonates a lot with me in terms of what you've said, in the sense that having a long term perspective makes a massive difference. And yeah, that the longer the wait, the bigger the ask. Great one. That's brilliant. In terms of then FCI as a business, where do you see the business in 3 to 5 years, or maybe 10 years if you're looking really long term? Where do you want the business to be? Where do you want to be?
I think right now we have programs that we're working on with Saudi specifically. We have other programs in the GCC. I believe the vision is so big that we will continue to do what we're doing. We'll continue to grow our chapters. We'll continue to support different business owners. The vision and what we're doing is so big. I always wanted to do something which I'm always kind of chasing. So over here, every day I feel like it's ahead of me. So I always have to play catch up. So if it's too easy for me, I've had an exit before. I've done it. It slows me down. If it's challenging, if it's constantly, it's keeping my brain active. It's keeping me healthy, and keeping me around extremely smart people. I'm happy. This is why I do what I do. But I believe the company itself will continue to do amazing, amazing deals across different countries. And I think the most important thing is the friendships that come out of this. The friendships that come out of such trips is absolutely phenomenal. And when you see people connect because of your curation and some business coming out of it, it's just the most beautiful feeling in the world.
No, absolutely. I think that's actually a very wholesome response in that sense. It's building those connections for other people and seeing it thrive. And I think it says a lot about yourself as well. And you spoke about you being a people person at the start and very emotionally intelligent. And I feel like emotionally intelligent people naturally want people to do well for each other and build those relationships, and it clearly comes across in the way you operate your business. So that's really interesting to see. And I always say businesses are a reflection of their CEOs and founders, right? And so that's a great point. In terms of then you yourself, what matters more to you than anything else?
I think what matters to me more than anything else is making sure that I am, making sure keeping the right people involved. I think that is a decision which can take you very further, of it can slow you down. So making sure the right people are working with you both internally and also on the outside, because you need to be happy with who you build companies with. You need to enjoy the process. It shouldn't stress you out. So the whole goal is to, of course, enjoy the success, but also keep the right people around you so you can enjoy it and it can be amplified. If you don't have the right people involved, you can never be happy from a family perspective and also from a friend's perspective. So you need to keep the right people around you to enjoy the success of life. And otherwise, with age, it will, things get boring, and things you realize that you really haven't lived. So don't forget to live while you're building anything or enjoying your career.
I think that's a really great point as well. Often when we especially building businesses and building high achieving people trying to build something, you can often forget about the things that are happening right now in your life, right? And it's a great point not to forget the family, not to forget the loved ones, the close people in your family, inner circle, to be able to give back to them, thank them for being around. I think that's a really great point. In terms of, you've been in business in hospitality and for over a decade, and you've had an exit in your past. What are some of the lessons you've learned? What have you done before? And what didn't work? And I appreciate this is a question, there might be a million and one things. Maybe the top thing that you can think of off the top of your mind.
I think my exit came out of something I wasn't anticipating. We launched a software company called Cloudy Twins, and I was bored. We were doing really well. I wanted to, it was COVID, so we just we had money to spend. We said, these are all companies we're investing in. Let's launch a software company, use it as a landing pad to invest in other companies that we're investing in, or we can just start up new companies. So I built up an office, I hired a lot of people, and I started 6-7 companies under the software company, and we launched them. And I think at one time I was running 6 small startups, full self-funded, bootstrapped, completely engineering team of our own, marketing team separate for each invested, and also was managing the 6 different companies. And what's really funny, FCI was one of them.
Wow, no way.
Yeah, FCI was one of those six companies we started 6-7 years ago. And
wow.
It was one of those initiations of what I wanted to do. Find the Venue was one of them. FCI was one of them. There was another one called Dunya, which was in the blockchain sector, which we had an exit with. There was one called Be Seen Globally, which was just doing PR for speakers. So I think it was a portfolio of 6 companies, and we had an exit with one of them. I believe 2 of them have stopped operations. And when I say stopped operations, that means they're still cash flow positive. Can you imagine? Till today, they're cash flow positive. However, till today, those companies are cash flow positive. We are looking to, because we know the level of effort it's required to grow that company from 1 to 5 to 10 million. You will need a CEO that's the right CEO. So I'm on the lookout for the right CEO. The day I find it, it will be incubated again. But I think that was a really good time, because it was COVID and you had time to explore and really kind of make sure that you're choosing the right thing. But after 2 years, I made it a goal that I will choose that one company that I enjoy the most, because all companies ended up cash flow positive. The 6 portfolio companies we launched, all of them became cash flow positive. But the one that I chose to focus on was the one which I thought I was the most well equipped for, with the right skill set. And I believe this is the company which I have the right skill set for, even though I have an engineering background. I believe that don't believe that I can make the best product. I don't believe I'm the right person for that. And anything I do there, I will, because it's not my skill set. So anytime I went into product, the company lost money. Every time I focused on my skill set, which was people, which was international business, which was human behavior, which was events, the company did really well. So I learned what I wasn't good at and what I can never be the best at. I accepted it. And then I focused on that one thing. I hyper focused on that one thing that I believed I was very good at. And I think that was the best decision. And sometimes when you have to let go of some things that you've built as well, even though they're cash flow positive, to look at a longer vision, that's a tough move to do, right? Because you still have to
Yeah.
pivot, focus, let go of your ego, which is very high in us men, and
Yeah.
and I think that was something that I learned. Stick to your core as to what you're good
Hmm.
at, and keep building on that. You don't need to start another company, another industry. And I think a lot of people now that I see, AI comes in, they adapt completely towards AI. If the next NFT comes in, they do whatever is the new thing. They completely change their business model for that. But that's not the way you want. You want to look at what your business is, grow it in segments, and look at, okay, not 5, 10 years, 20 years, where can I take this? Because it takes that much time.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely resonate with everything you said there. Even in my own journey, where I started off my career in accounting and tax, and I worked, and I was always, I never was good at that. That wasn't my skill set. I always felt like, oh, get me in front of a client, I'll be better there. Get me in front of people, I'll be better there. Like that's my side of things. And I spent 8 to 9 years just working in a sector, in a job that was just not in my skill set, and I realized there was a ceiling to where I could be because of that. And when I moved over to this side and running my own business and doing the things that actually lean into my skill set, I found that I made the biggest strides in my life. I made achieved the biggest goals. And I love you mentioned one thing. I've got a book here. It's my favorite book. It's called The One Thing, and focusing on the one. It's one of my favorite books just because it literally made me realize that you know what you're good at and focus on that one thing. So that really resonated with me. So I love that.
I read that book. I was told to
It's a
read that
brilliant
book.
book. Yeah, it's a brilliant book. It really is. My last question for you today, and it's the question I end the podcast on with every podcast. It's, if you had a magic wand to solve one problem, what would that problem be?
I think the one problem that I think, again, this has nothing to do with my business. This is something a little bit personal. But I believe that as you age, right? I think my aunt, who's like a mother to me, she's aged, and I've seen her. She's had a lot of success in her life. But in the past 6 months, I've seen her completely lose her memory, lose huge cognitive decline. And I've seen someone who was so capable, to do everything in the world, now having to resort to us and so many healthcare workers to really kind of just make her pass her day, right? I think if aging healthy and understanding of what it takes to, take care of different illnesses, and having the right material for health from a young age, completely accessible to all people. We obviously got her the best treatment at Hopkins and all these different, but still, we're having to go through that. Imagine someone who doesn't come from a background where they can afford such, top of the line healthcare workers and technology and everything, and still having to go through this. So I think imagine what they go through without the right resources, without the right support system. They still have to go to their job. I was able to take a few weeks off and slow down and give her time. What about the people who have to hit their paychecks to still take care of a loved one? So I think there needs to be more public policy work thought of. By the way, this doesn't come to mind until you go through it. And
Yeah.
I lived my life not even thinking about such things. And now I think about it more than anything in the world, and everything in life. If you look at life as, when I'm old, and when I will age, who will be the people around me, who's going to take care of me? So on both sides, I think the healthcare system needs support. And also from a personal perspective, if you start thinking this question of aging, then you start living a better life, because you start surrounding yourself with the people that you want to enjoy when you're old as well, right? Because not many people will be there for you when you get to that stage in life, and you'll see. And I think that's a big change in me that I've seen this year, and I hope no one goes through it. But I do believe that more people should inshallah, they have the right tools and they're more equipped than at least we were, regardless of where they live and which country and which emerging market and which city, So
Yeah, no. I think that's a really lovely place to end it, and it's a great message there. And I think that resonates with me. A lot of things that happen in the world we're not aware of because it's not in our sphere of. It's not. We haven't experienced it. We don't know what it feels like. We can't know what it feels like until it happens to us. And so, I'm sorry to hear about your aunt, but I think that's a lovely place to end it. So. On that note, really appreciate your time, Taha, and thank you for all the insights that you've shared with us today. It's been a great conversation, so appreciate it.
We also have a book launching, by the way, so maybe
great,
for your
yeah.
users, it's called the Saudi Renaissance. It's your guidebook to do business in the region. What I'll
Great.
do is on your podcast, anyone who sends you an email, we'll send them a free copy. So anyone listening to this, 10 users, you can choose yourself, and I'll send them a copy shipped in.
Fantastic. That's great for the audience. So I'll be sure to make sure you reach out, and then we'll get that sent over to you. Fantastic. Thanks for that, Taha.
Perfect.
All right then. Bye now.
Thank you.
Cheers.